Welcome to Deployment Fundamentals. This course is for volunteers or employees who respond to a disaster for multiple days or weeks away from their home of record and stay in a staff shelter or hotel. This training will provide the information and tools necessary for disaster responders to successfully prepare for and deploy away from home to a disaster relief operation. This course will help you to prepare for your disaster assignment, know what to expect before and during a disaster relief assignment, and meet the challenges of disaster relief operation work. Let's begin with keys for your success. It's important that we all behave as professionals, both in our words and in our deeds. When we wear the Red Cross symbol to the public, we represent the entire organization, and it is vitally important that we live and act by our fundamental principles at all times. Model safe practices regarding COVID protection and prevention in the community, regardless of what the jurisdiction's rules are. Please take care of and be accountable for all resources that are assigned to you and your team. Model the Red Cross values of being compassionate, collaborative, creative, credible, and committed by treating each other with care and respect. Embrace diversity and inclusiveness within our organization, our clients, and our partners. We will all need to be creative working with a largely virtual workforce and within the pandemic environment. If you can think of a better way to accomplish something, speak up. Act with integrity in everything you do and remain committed to the Red Cross mission. Finally, be a good steward of the donor dollar. We can accomplish so much more when we all model these values. We are committed to providing a work environment free from harassment where everyone is treated with respect and dignity. Every worker has a responsibility to report potentially dangerous situations to their supervisor immediately. This includes co-workers not wearing appropriate PPE. Red Cross has zero tolerance for harassment and violence. This policy includes sexual harassment, which may include unwelcome sexual advances, sexual jokes and innuendo, or verbal abuse of a sexual nature. Any words, actions, or visual matter that demean or show hostility toward an individual or group because of any characteristic protected by federal, state, or local law will not be tolerated. The Volunteer Handbook outlines the anti-harassment and violence-free workplace policies. Regarding the use of social media, the Red Cross encourages all workers to keep in mind the speed and manner in which information posted on a blog or social networking sites such as Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook can be relayed and often misunderstood by readers. Workers must use their best judgment when posting. Remember that others who may be identifiable should not be included in any photo posts without their written consent. Workers should contact management or human resources with questions about acceptable posting or concerns about others' posts. When in doubt, don't post. Please be mindful of our core values: humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, voluntary service, unity, universality. There are many things in our society today that one may feel strongly about: politics, religious or personal beliefs regarding one's life choices, feelings about COVID or other sensitive topics should not be discussed with our clients or our co-workers in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable, whether on shift or off. At the American Red Cross, our clients, volunteers, employees, donors, and suppliers come from a variety of cultures, ethnic backgrounds, ages, and lifestyles. It is important that we value and respect that diversity because the American Red Cross is proud of our commitment to diversity and inclusion. Each of us must play our part to help the organization benefit from that commitment. Our mission delivery is enhanced when we value, embrace, and utilize differences that your fellow responders and our clients possess. Our success in doing that depends on the level of cultural competency you bring to your tasks. We'll address cultural competency again in a moment. At the Red Cross, when we talk about diversity, we consider each and everything that make us unique. Things like race and gender and religion, education, parental status, work background, where you're from, and more. All the things that make us different and unique as compared to others. Inclusion, on the other hand, comes into play within the environment in which we do our work. The objective is for everyone to feel welcomed, valued, and respected wherever we're doing Red Cross work. Having a diverse team of employees and volunteers who operate in an inclusive work environment is a foundation for establishing culturally competent service delivery. Culturally competent service delivery means we provide services to a community in a way that shows we understand and appreciate the basic characteristics of that community. We would also like to address the needs of accessibility. Our fundamental principles are our guide in helping people. People from all walks of life, from a variety of backgrounds and different needs, will come to us for assistance. As Red Cross workers, we welcome everyone into our shelters and at all service delivery sites that we are operating. That includes people who use wheelchairs, crutches, or other mobility equipment, or service animals. If you are not sure how to support the individual, bring them in, make them comfortable, and seek help from Disaster Health Services, your supervisor, or the site manager. If you see conditions that may limit our ability to serve all people, we want you to take immediate action to make the environment welcoming and accessible. This includes accessible restrooms, showers, walkways to sites, and food to meet everyone's dietary needs. Conducting our team meetings via video and audio may be challenging for some of our workforce. Support each other and get disability integration involved to assist if necessary and if requested. Communicating solely through technology is challenging for all of us. Let's make sure we're all successful in our mission. Before you're assigned to a disaster, it's important to understand some of your responsibilities as a recruited worker. First is the accountability to serve in your given assignment when responding to a disaster. Each assignment is considered an earned opportunity, and please know that you will not always have a choice in selecting your work location or role. We also expect you to be flexible when on an assignment. You may be assigned in one activity or role, such as a feeding worker, and then when you arrive, you could be initially or temporarily assigned to a different activity or role, like a shelter worker. Responders should not be taking positions for which they are not trained or qualified. Work with your regional deployment team if you have any questions around your training or qualifications. While many volunteers get involved when they hear about a disaster on the news, American Red Cross disaster responders who travel to DRO, disaster response operations sites, have to be ready before a disaster strikes. Volunteer Connection is the Red Cross system used to track the workforce and mobilize resources quickly and efficiently following a disaster. Among other things, Volunteer Connection is where you will let the Red Cross know how to contact you for a disaster assignment and when you are available to respond. It is your responsibility to be prepared for disaster assignments by keeping your Volunteer Connection profile up to date and accurate. In the Personal Information section, check that your phone number, email address, and legal name are correct. Indicate any proficiency in languages other than English. The Qualifications section lists professional licenses and Red Cross specialty tracks. Check your position. You can be recruited for any positions listed. Make any changes through your local region. Also, be sure an emergency contact and phone number are correct. Responders are required to list at least one emergency contact. If your emergency contact is deploying with you, please add an additional contact. As disaster operations are ramping up and staffing needs are being determined, a process is put in place to assign workers and is sometimes put into operational status levels. We use 4 levels of operational status in disasters to help you know our expectations. Sometimes these may occur one at a time, and other times all at once. Available means that you are available to travel within 24 hours. However, you are not yet deployed. Alert means you are ready to travel within 12 hours. Your bags are packed and you're ready to go, simply awaiting final confirmation. An activate status means the assignment is confirmed. You have all reporting information and make travel plans to depart immediately. And a status of stand down applies when the alert is canceled and formal notification is made. You are no longer needed on the relief operation. There is no longer a commitment for this particular assignment, and your status reverts to your previous availability. Be sure to regularly check your smartphone or computer because the status can change quickly at times. For planning and response purposes, disaster relief operations are considered regional, divisional, or national responses, with regional being the smallest and national being the largest. Knowing the response level of the disaster may help you manage your expectations about what you might encounter. Most likely, you will be assigned to a divisional or national response, but it is helpful to know the different levels. A regional response, or territorial response, is an operation contained and resourced within the jurisdiction of a single region. This includes steady-state incidents, as well as larger events within the predetermined capacity of that region. A divisional response is an operation crossing regional boundaries and/or beyond the scope of a single region. The response will be resourced first from within the regions. However, this will not preclude the movement of human and/or material resources. Some regions are very large geographically, and you may need to travel to and stay in lodging many miles from your home for multiple days. A national response operation applies to larger events that affect multiple regions and/or divisions and require the movement of supplies and staff and/or create national impact or risk for the organization. The overall authority and accountability shifts to national headquarters. Disasters are also defined by financial levels, meaning the estimated cost to provide service delivery to those in the impacted area. The levels go from lowest to highest, with Level 1 being less than $10,000 to Level 7 at $10 to $20 million. The higher the level, the more complex the operation. Now that you have some information on the structure of a disaster operation, it's time to get you ready to deploy. Once you've received the call to activate, you'll need to take care of several tasks. To make travel arrangements, you will work with your region to determine how you will travel to the DRO in a timely and cost-effective manner. This may be via a shared or individual rental vehicle, Red Cross vehicle, train, or air travel. Train and air travel are booked through the Red Cross's travel agency. It is important to note your travel information on your DRO assignment record and keep it with you throughout your assignment. Next, we use a series of hardship codes to help you understand the conditions of a relief operation. These are things like water disruption, extreme emotional stress, or extreme weather conditions. Be sure you are aware of any hardship codes before you travel to help you pack properly and to help you prepare emotionally. The Pre-Assignment Health Questionnaire is a series of yes or no questions used to verify you are healthy enough to travel and to be assigned to a DRO. Answering yes to these questions does not prevent you from deployment, but does require that you receive clearance from a health reviewer in order to deploy. Access the questionnaire on Volunteer Connection. The DRO assignment record is a one-page document accompanied by other information from the deployment recruiter with the details of your assignment, including the DR number and name, hardship codes, your position, important phone numbers and addresses. Use this record to take additional notes as you review with your region and prepare to travel. Keep this document with you throughout your deployment. Don't trust your memory. Write it down. You will be assigned a mission card to cover approved expenses during your deployment. The Red Cross has a strict accountability policy around the use of this card, and you could be liable for any misuse of the card, including legal action. Please refer to the brochure that comes with the card and follow the directions. When flying, your mission card may be used to pay for one checked bag. Any additional checked bags payment will be your responsibility. Work with your chapter to arrange transportation to and from the airport to avoid parking fees, which are not reimbursable. Please use your card for all purchases whenever possible rather than cash. In specific instances where cash withdrawals are recommended, such as a disaster in a remote area with no power or bank access, you will be instructed to withdraw specific cash amounts. Should you need additional funds on your card, contact the reload team. Check your balance periodically. Don't wait until you run out of funds to request a reload. The maximum allowance for meals and incidentals is $35 per day. Incidentals include laundry, tips for housekeeping, and ATM fees. Keep all receipts for fuel and any purchases over $35. Now let's talk about being prepared for your lodging. Red Cross disaster operations have used community living situations regularly throughout the years. While commercial lodging, hotels, or motels are the preferred placement, you may be placed in a staff shelter or dorm. For any lodging situation, you should be prepared for community living, meaning you will be sharing sleeping accommodations with one or more Red Cross team member. Be prepared for the following possibilities in community living situations. Shared or separate areas for males and females, including shower and bathroom facilities. Some shower facilities may be in outdoor trailers. Social space with televisions and eating areas will be shared, if available for common use. In a staff shelter, expect to sleep on a standard shelter-type cot. Ideally, it would be helpful to know if you will be in a staff shelter versus a hotel before you deploy, but that is not always possible. It will depend on the DRO. Always plan on staying at a staff shelter. Knowing that you will be sharing some type of sleeping accommodation, here are some guidelines for community living. Bring personal supplies if you will need them. Please dress appropriately and bring proper sleep attire. This will be appreciated by others who are sharing the staff shelter or room and may possibly help avoid embarrassment. Bring earplugs if you are a light sleeper. Be flexible and open. You may meet a new best friend. Be tolerant and respectful. You may learn about a new generation, culture, belief, or lifestyle. Pillows, sheets, and towels may or may not be provided at your assigned accommodation. Make the assumption that you'll need these items and pack them. Please know that it may not be easy to purchase these items during the DRO and that Red Cross funds cannot be used for this. Blankets will be provided. Depending on how you pack, you may be able to take an air mattress with you, but remember, you cannot charge excess baggage on your mission card, so plan accordingly. If you're staying at a hotel or motel, you will most likely be assigned a roommate. In some cases, if you have a roommate preference, you can ask the staff services lodging if you can be accommodated, but it cannot be guaranteed. You are not permitted to change rooms or hotel locations without the permission from staff services lodging manager. Please understand that being a light sleeper is not a reason to be granted a room without a roommate. You must sign the Red Cross sign-in sheet at the hotel or motel. Print your name clearly and include your member number. You should start receiving the Incident Action Plan, or IAP, via email as soon as you are assigned. The IAP includes helpful information about the operation, such as the objectives, contacts, maps, and schedules. The IAP is prepared and disseminated by the Assistant Director of Information and Planning for each DR and distributed through volunteer connection to the email address you have listed in your profile. If you are not receiving the email, check volunteer connection to verify your email address is correct. If you still haven't received the email when arriving at the operation, check with staff services to help resolve this issue. All DRO members should be able to access and view the IAP. Take time to review it daily. It will be very important that you read the assignment deployment emails that you receive from the deployment team. If you have any questions about your assignment before leaving home, you should only reach out to your regional deployment team that assigned you. If you have any urgent issues with your travel while you are traveling, you will need to call the 24-hour staff deployment number provided to you in your information packet. That is the only time that number should be used. When you arrive at the disaster operation destination, refer to the Disaster Responder Information System, also known as the DRIS, to receive further instructions. If you are assigned to an operation as a supervisor, there is another step you will need to take. Before you depart for a deployment, you should log into Volunteer Connection again to ensure you can access the system. It will be easier to troubleshoot this at home than at the DRO. Please note, even if you are not being assigned as a supervisor, the following information is good to know because you may be put into a supervisory role while on the disaster operation. Volunteer Connection allows supervisors to see the roster for their assigned workers. The roster link will appear on your Volunteer Connection homepage once you are checked into an operation and have direct reports. The roster and evaluation pages will display great from any screen. If you don't have a phone or laptop, or if you are using a shared computer from the DRO or at a business center, use the Incognito tab, which deletes your browsing history on your computer when you close it, to maintain confidentiality of responder information. Never save your password to a shared computer or workstation. Now, we'll look at the basic information supervisors will see about their direct reports. This is a sample of what a supervisor would see when viewing their roster. In the purple circle, you can see that Steve is a first-time deployer and has a mission card. Other things you can see on the roster are who has a mass care procurement card and who has transferred from another relief operation. In the gold circle, you will see a paper icon for the work performance evaluation. This is where you can go to draft or complete the responder's work performance evaluation. There is also basic information on the responder and their assignment, such as contact information and their assigned gap. Let's take a look at how you can contact a responder from your roster. The roster allows you to email or text your direct reports at once. You will select which responders you would like to message by clicking on the box next to their name or using the Select All box at the top of the roster. Then click Send Message, and you'll choose to send a text or email. You can even add attachments to emails and create a DRO signature that will be used every time you email your direct reports. When a responder replies, you can view that reply on your phone or email and continue to communicate with them. The supervisor's cell phone number or email address, depending on the communication type, will display in the from of the message. A responder can reply to either of these, and the supervisor will see it in their phone or email, as they would for any other communication. Once you are on the operation, and if you know you are going into an area with no or limited internet access, you can download a copy of your roster to take with you. Select all or some of the workers and press the download button on your roster. This will open a file that you can save or print. If you print the file, do not leave it lying out. This contains a responder's contact information and should be treated with the utmost care. We've seen some great features of the roster, but we are guessing you may have a few more questions. If your roster is not correct, contact Staff Services for assistance in reconciling your roster. When you are out processing, let Staff Services know your replacement. Your roster will continue to be available for 7 days to allow for completion of evaluations. If you transfer to another DR and supervise responders on the new DR, you will have a choice of which DR's roster to view. Now that you have identified ways in which you can prepare for supervising workers, let's discuss what you will do when you arrive at your assignment. You will receive a phone call and email with arrival instructions 2 times per day until you are checked into the DRO. This will include instructions for arrival and transportation from the airport to the reporting location. If responding to a larger disaster, look for an ambassador at the airport, although this doesn't apply in all cases. The ambassador can provide you with valuable information and may answer any questions that you may have. If you have any issues once you arrive at the disaster destination that the DRIS does not address, then you should call the 24-hour staff services number for that operation provided to you. There are strict requirements around the assignment and use of rental cars on a disaster operation. The DRIS will tell responders if they are to pick up a rental car at their assigned destination airport. You may be instructed to look for other responders arriving and told to share the car ride to the assigned reporting location. And remember, just because you pick up a car does not mean that you will keep that car. When you in-process, you must register the car with transportation. If you are assigned a car, you may not transfer the car without notifying transportation. You will be required to purchase fuel for that car using your mission card. Notify transportation at the end of your assignment for instructions on the disposition of the rental car. Be sure the fuel tank is full. Once you arrive at the disaster relief operation, you'll check in with staff services for in-processing. You'll need to have your Red Cross identification and DRO assignment record with you. You will then be given your work assignment and work location. Next, attend the DRO operational orientation to get the most current information about the disaster relief operation. Attending the orientation will ensure that you have the latest and greatest information about that operation. Every disaster operation is different, and attending an orientation will help you have a successful assignment. Register your vehicle, if any, with logistics transportation. Report to the activity that you were recruited for to receive your work assignment and job induction. Depending on the operation and position, it may take a while before you start your work. After you are told where you'll be working, return to staff services to receive your lodging assignment. Make sure you sign the Red Cross sign-in sheet at the hotel or motel. Print your name clearly and include your member number. If you arrive on the operation with a specialized assignment, you need to remain in that assignment and not be pulled into another position. If you are assigned in a specialty track or by name request or on a mega shelter team, your responsibility is to that assignment. Let staff services know at in-processing that you were assigned for a specific assignment. Also remember that you agreed to take your assignment for a designated period of time, usually 2 weeks or more. You are expected to stay on the operation for the designated days. If the role you were assigned to ends before your time commitment, you will be assigned to another appropriate position to fill out the remaining days. In some cases, workers decide they can stay longer than their assigned time. Work with your supervisor or staff services to see if you are needed and how you can extend your time. At the end of your assignment days, you are expected to return to your home of record. However, there can be exceptions to change or extend your return travel, but they require the permission of the job director. There are many resources available to you while you are on the operation. To highlight a few, your direct supervisor is your main point of contact and will be available to help orient you to your assignment and assist you with any issues that may come up. Or, if you are working at one of our service delivery sites, you can check in with your site manager, who will have more information about what you need to do. Another resource is staff relations. They are available to assist you with any issue resolution needs. There may be staff advocates assigned to the operation to check in on you and ensure that you are safe and that you have the things you need to get the job done. There may be opportunities to receive training on the operation. Reach out to your training team and let them know what courses you are interested in. We'd love you to leave the operation with a new skill or gap. As you know from the recent pandemic, it's important to wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds and avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Clean and disinfect commonly used surfaces like cell phones, keyboards, and desks multiple times per day. Clean and disinfect other surfaces like tables, doorknobs, and light switches at least daily. Another way to help minimize the risk of spreading germs or viruses is to mark your own pen with your initials. Blue tape works great for this. And don't share your pen with coworkers. You can carry disposable pens and leave the pens with the client. Pick up after yourself. Pitch in and do your part to help keep your worksite clean, sanitized, and safe. Remember, when you are assigned to a disaster operation, you will receive pre-deployment information from the regional deployment team who recruited you for the assignment. Follow the documents you received when you are assigned. There are also many other responder resources available on the Exchange. You can also download a PDF of this presentation from the Disaster Training Index on the Exchange when you are called for an assignment to review this content. Here is a screenshot of just some of the resources available in the Deployment Toolkit. In the words of a recent responder, "No matter how many times I deploy, I always use the resources that I'm provided. They've done the work so I don't have to. I also make sure I know the hardship codes in case I need something as a result. Remember, you have to be able to carry what you bring, so make smart choices. And if the Red Cross recommends something, it's for good reason. Trust the process." By being prepared, flexible, professional, accountable, and mission-driven, you can help us provide compassionate care to those in need. Thank you for your valued work with the Red Cross.